Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'd love to hear where you are. So do please comment there in the chat. Love to know who's joining us today. I am really honored to have a very distinguished guest. Orly Lobel is the Warren Distinguished Professor of Law at the University of San Diego, and she has done some cool things. She's written a ton of books. One of her books is called "You Don't Own Me: How Mattel versus MGA." Let me see. Wait. Let me say it right. You Don't Own Me: How Mattel versus MGA Entertainment Exposed Barbie's Dark Side. She wrote another book called "Talent Wants to Be Free: Why We Should Learn to Love Leaks, Raids, and Free Writing." And that book ended up getting her into Washington, D.C., where she held some conversations and with people in the White House and really resulted in some call to action from President Obama. So and you've done just so much. You were a keynote speaker and advisor for the FTC on labor market competition, and you've got a new book out, which we'll talk about. So thank you so much for making time for little old me.
Oh, Catherine, it's such a pleasure to be part of your show.
Yeah, thank you. So tell us about the book "You Don't Own Me." It was about creativity and innovation wars in the toy industry. Tell me a little bit about what's in the book, and then I know I'll have lots of other questions.
Yeah, the book is it's a full story, and it's both very specific to the toy industry. It's the battle between Mattel, the makers of Barbie, and then a new doll that came on the block and was a competitor, Bratz. And so it's kind of
Mm,
Barbie Bratz decade-long litigation behind the scenes, how these executives were fighting it out, didn't want new dolls to be on the market, how they used intellectual property law and economic espionage and other questionable, ethical choices to try to win the innovation wars and the creativity wars in the doll industry. So it's a specific story with very colorful people and kind of twists and turns in the market and courtroom dramas. But it's also a universal story because what I wanted to show in the book is that really these battles happen in every industry and in every context.
mhm.
There's the kind of the big companies that try to maintain their dominance, and entrepreneurs and creative people that a lot of times get hit by um, frivolous lawsuits most of the time to say that they cannot compete.
Yeah. And I guess Bratz won out because I feel like I see Bratz around, and there's so many other dolls too.
Yeah, how when this one entrepreneur who was gutsy enough to fight the biggest toy maker in the world, Mattel, all the way. And it was very, very costly, and costly also emotionally and psychologically and just personally, not just in terms of the litigation costs, which were huge.
Yeah.
But that really opened up the toy industry, and now we have many more offerings. And even with Mattel, when they were the one dominant fashion doll maker, so when Barbie had 90+% of the market for decades, they really didn't have an incentive to change. And they had a lot of, there was a lot of feminist critique. There was a lot of um, race critique on, how
Mhm.
white and imperfectly or impossibly perfect Barbie was, the
Right.
everything. And just recently, just in the past couple of years, Mattel has been introducing shaped dolls, fuller bodied dolls, and just making changes itself, which is really tracks the economic theory in general, that when we have more competition, we have more consumer choice, we have more innovation.
Yeah. Yeah. I have an 8-year-old daughter, so I have been pleased to see the options. And she's often choosing dolls, that don't look like her. And I'm so happy for that. And I can't imagine what it might have been like to not have options of dolls that look like you. So it is good that we are moving in that direction in all sorts of industries, of including everyone. I'm a culture consultant, so I got to ask, what does that these types, this fight that they were having, or that Barbie was trying to hold on to the marketplace, or Mattel, what does that say about their culture? Do we get an insight into their culture through your book?
Yeah, the corporate culture at Mattel, definitely it was very much exposed during the trials. And I talk about this in the book of how there were like two competing stories about the culture in at Mattel. So and there's the culture, there's the company culture, but then like it shapes also just our popular culture, and what kind of images girls see and parents see, and what stories we tell, and the movies. It's they have all these ties with Disney. um,
Mhm.
but there were kind of these competing stories where Mattel was saying that the culture was very open to ideas, to like triggering innovation in their different creatives, their designers. And so they tried to show, they brought in to the trial all sorts of experts that were talking about how they brought workshops, so like creativity gurus, clowns, juggling, like design seminars, um, and that it was very like open, um, just
Sounds fun, open and fun, and
open and fun, but also just physically, like that you could see what everybody else is working on,
okay.
like with the cubicles. So they tried to say that the designer, so the story begins with a designer at Mattel who's really unhappy with the culture at Mattel, and wants to leave, and wants to create a more bratty doll, and
Mhm.
not just serve Barbie for the next 50 years. And he leaves, and he designs Bratz and sells it to a smaller competitor. And then Mattel says, well, because you worked here, we own.
Mm.
And that's kind of the idea of, you don't own me, you don't own my creative juices. But the reality was that the 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 kind of counter story was that he was suggesting all these internal innovations and new products, and like different voices, and he felt very unheard. So the culture was very top down, very
Mm.
hierarchical, very exclusive. There's this kind of control of the one single image of what Barbie is, and that's why Mattel was also so litigious. That like anybody who tried to challenge like who she is, this clean vanilla, you know, strangely like unsexed but very sexy, like
Yeah.
mature woman. Um, Anybody who tried to place her in like a different kind of setting, they sued artists, they sued filmmakers, they sued. Um, they didn't allow like magazines that wanted to show um, Ken, her partner, in like a gay situation. They tried to control the image, so that was much more, I think, of the reality of the culture.
Okay. So they painted themselves as an innovative, creative culture, but really it was like, as long as you're creative inside our box, then you're good.
Uh,
Sorry, say that again. You cut out.
no, I said that I think that's exactly right. The way that you just summarized it.
Yeah. And it took, I'm a culture consultant, so I do things like workforce surveys, and then we create strategic plans. And for Mattel, it took this whole unraveling of Barbie, and I don't know. I mean, there's just so much there with the whole Barbie thing. We could talk about white privilege, and I mean, there's just so much. We could have a whole 8-hour show just to talk about Barbie and everything she is and is not. Um,
Yeah,
so, what's that?
it all comes out in the book, really, because I describe all her critics and all her admirers, and the history behind like how did she come about. And there are always competing stories there, like who invented her, not only who invented Bratz, but yeah. And
Yeah.
how the marketing of her initially was there's like a crazy story of like she was marketed in the same ways that kind of like Mad Men style advertising, like tobacco and cars. It was kind of the same ad agency that used, a lot of our psychological insecurities to market Barbie to girls.
Yeah, because she would have come out during that Mad Men
Right.
era. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in your book. I will be ordering a copy after we get off here today. Um, Talk to me about, so you're an expert on work law and employment relations, and I'm curious. Work-life balance is a important conversation. It always has been, but it's been sort of coming to a head lately with COVID and everything. What are your thoughts on how to build work-life balance, maybe both personally and also some advice for organizations?
Yeah, this is, as you say, this is something that has been an acute question for many years. More and more. So when dual, earners are managing work family balance, and single parents, and just changes in how we perceive what we want to get out of work, and so there's kind of generational differences. So it's all been, always a question. But with the pandemic, there's a lot of talk about the great resignation, where people are really reassessing what's important to them, what they want to get out of the workforce, out of their careers, how do they want to draw that balance, and also the technology
Mhm.
and the situation with the, that was accelerated with a global pandemic. They all changed the way that we work. So it's all been kind of accelerated with circumstance, where people understand that they can work more, remotely, flexibly. Employers are recognizing that. I think these are all quite good developments that technology is enabling us to. Like, I'm in St. Louis today, and I'm talking to you in California, and um, people want to manage their careers, want to take more autonomy over, how they work.
Mhm.
um, there are also, of course, risks in that, where we're kind of constantly available, we're digitally, always connected. And so there's, from kind of policy perspective, there's initiatives more so in Europe than here about like the right to disconnect sometimes, and
Mhm.
your work family balance in that way of not being constantly available. But it's a really exciting time for all of us in this sphere, and on culture and on policy.
Mhm. Yeah. What so like one tip I'm thinking of for listeners is I obviously I'm the owner of my business. I work depending on whenever I can or when I feel like it, if it's midnight and I have something I want to be thinking about. So my team knows, for example, that if they get an email from me after hours, I certainly do not want them to respond to it. And I'll even like, what are you doing responding to this? So, we have pretty clear sort of boundaries that once you clock out, I don't want you working unless we've talked about it, or sometimes there's overtime, certainly for some sort of project or what have you. But I think that's been helpful. They know where I stand on work-life balance. And I talk about how my dad worked so much when I was a kid that he was never at dinner. It was like I was raised in a single parent home just because my dad, he was a lawyer and building his business, and I don't want to be that. So my thoughts on work-life balance are pretty clear to my team. I'm curious, what other tips do you have for employers about how can they make sure that people are getting work-life balance and not burning out?
Yeah. I mean, so everything that you're describing that you do with your team is, of course, so important. And I think businesses have to understand that it's, most of the time it's a win-win there, because employers are happier. There's a lot of evidence that we're actually more productive when we disconnect sometimes. We're more creative when we have time to, recharge and have some time away. but there's software that helps with that too. So, when you're both from an employer perspective, but also just when you're like a freelancer who has like me, I'm not a freelancer, but as an academic who really manages her own time, and I do research. Um, I've really come to appreciate these like software that one is called Freedom, and some others that allow you to be online, but not really online. So, or like on your computer, but without the distractions of other like of email or
Mm.
kind of,
Your Slack channel popping up or
yeah,
something.
yeah. So you can parse that out. And then of course, there, and larger employers really do that. And again, I think it's both the right thing to do, but it's also a recruiting way, and a good thing for retention is providing for childcare expenses,
Mhm.
providing for flexible work shifts, uh, either providing on-site childcare, or a lot of companies moving to remote work or remote options or hybrid options.
Mhm.
And really kind of modeling that too. So, Catherine, when you tell your team to, not respond after hours, but if you're yourself, like, working after hours, it's not good enough to just say it. You also have to model it, from.
Yes, shame on me. Yes, I know, but at least they know. I mean, I guess I always take the position like I'm the owner, and if something pops in my mind and I want to do it or make it happen or email about it, I'm gonna. But yeah, that's a fair
Yeah,
point.
no, these are hard things to do, and I think that we all should recognize that there's going to be like some like cycles and different times when we're working more and working less. You know, of course, paid vacations are always great, and I think finding balance through all sorts of retreats, and I think really this is part of the great resignation that we're seeing in the social psychology and kind of industrial relations research, that more and more, and especially younger generations, are really valuing um, intangible, or maybe tangible, but not just like the salary, not just the bottom line salary that
Mhm.
used to be kind of the number one marker of like why we choose one job over the other. um,
Yeah.
so people value um, really enriching their human capital.
Mhm.
And people don't expect to start at one job and stay there for too long. So they really want to think about their careers and building their skills, being challenged. They value companies that have a mission that's larger than just profit. Uh,
Right.
and a company can, again, it's most of the time it's really win-win and these interests align. But companies that are doing good and doing well, companies that care about the environment, care about um, innovation and creativity, and messages that are socially responsible, all of that. I think when you're doing that and you love what you're doing and you feel connected, your identity is more tied to your workplace than the burdens of, sometimes having a lot to juggle, which inevitably will happen when you have, small children, and you have a career and you have a life and you want to do, other things. Uh,
Yeah.
but then, even that busyness feels more fulfilling.
Yeah, yeah. I think too, just kind of going back to what you're saying about I can't be working at midnight if I don't want my team to. But I think um, we don't always stick to the office hours either. So like my kids have swim tonight at 5, so I'm going to be leaving at 4:30, and I started today at 9:30 when I logged on here with you. So I think they know like I'm getting in my 8 or more hours at the times that work for me because I have kids. They don't, but I know when they're ready to do that, they'll be looking for the similar freedom to not come and go as they please, but kinda, as long as they're
Yeah.
getting the work done. So I know we're almost out of time here, and I know you have some things to do before you get on your flight, but I did want to make sure I asked about your newest book. It's coming out later this year, and it's called The Equality Machine: Harnessing Tomorrow's Technologies for a Brighter, More Inclusive Future. Tell us what that book's about.
Yeah, so the Quality Machine is coming out in October, but it's already available on Amazon and all the booksellers pre-orders. And I would love for everybody to read it because I really think that it's a book for everybody. It's about everything that we talked about, but so much more on how we can leverage digital technology ranging from AI and automation, robotics, big data in ways that are actually really productive and inclusive and increase our well-being, because I think it's really kind of a contrarian response, and a book that is, I think, more forward looking to compared to all the, there's been a lot of talk about all the dangers, the privacy invasions, the kind of data extraction that's happening in the market, the kind of Facebook scandals and, all those. And it's not that there's no risk and that we shouldn't be very much aware of the potential harms and fails of technology, but this book offers such a more nuanced and complex and rich story about in every sector, and whether we're talking about our health or even our like dating lives on online platforms, and our intimate relations, our domestic relations, like introducing robots into our homes, personal assistants,
Yeah.
balancing our marriage and childcare responsibilities with the aid of our future robots, and work and media, and really kind of celebrating the advancements that are happening right now and the direction that we're going. So again, much more balanced and much more kind of constructive and optimistic than a lot of what we've been hearing recently.
Okay, so you're taking a whole new point of view on this topic. I got to ask, because I was thinking about this yesterday. I have a Alexa, so I will. Oh, she's probably going to start listening now. Um, I notice things around the kitchen. I need some sort of new bread or whatever, and I just Alexa, add this to the shopping list, and then I can order it from Amazon. And it appears at my door. As a single mom, this is fantastic. It's really hard to bring a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old to the grocery store, especially the 3-year-old, because he likes to pull things off the shelves. So it's really helpful for me. But on the flip side, well, so then I was thinking, okay, so that makes me just so much more productive, because that's 2 hours I'm not in the grocery store every week or whatever. But doesn't that contribute to burnout? That I don't know. I'm just curious about your thoughts, because going to the grocery store could also contribute to burnout if I'm exhausted and I still got to get there and bring my kids with me. But the fact that it opens the door for other things could also contribute to burnout, right? I'm just curious, where's the line?
So there are trade-offs, and there's kind of like it's quite personal, the costs and benefits of all this. But overall, the argument that I'm making in the book is that no, that it's more good than the kind of potential risk of burnout. When you're saving time, you actually open up, and this is the history of human innovation and progress. Like, women really entered the workplace when the laundry machine and the dishwasher,
Yeah.
home cleaner, like all of the industrialization really helped reach more balance. And I think that's the future of, there I talk about robots that are being developed to fold laundry and to change diapers. And it's clearly you're not going to stop wanting to do childcare, but if you can kind of strip the tasks that are less fulfilling and enriching and connecting us, what makes us the most human. And the book really asks, like what makes us human, and what is it that when we kind of can take out some of the things that can be automated, what is it that we really care about and are left with and are fulfilled by. I think it's an opportunity. And that's again what I really want everybody to think when they're reading The Equality Machine. Like, think for themselves, what are the opportunities, and being, and having skin in the game in that, because I think we all should be participating, and like, what are the directions and the ways that we're designing our future technologies so that we're on a positive path.
I have an idea. I got to get you and another one of my friends who wrote the what is it called? Oh man, I can't think. It's about loneliness. I can't think of what it's called. The Connectable, I think is the name of the book. And he talks about in his book how technology, like not going to the grocery store, is contributing to loneliness because I'm not interacting with people. So while I hear you, I could make more. If I'm not grocery shopping, I could be sitting on the floor making eye contact with my kids and playing a game or building something, which is important to our relationship versus us
Or
all being in the grocery store.
right.
Yeah. But then on the same token, I'm missing out on that other interaction out there in the world, or the random little smiles and things you get when you're in the grocery store. So I don't know. I think I might have to get the two of you on. Let's talk about it.
I that. But I really think that human flourishing is about um, creating more range and a more of a broader spectrum of choices and opportunities that we have. And so, of course, you can still go to the grocery store.
Yes, true.
Uh,
And
but
I do.
I'm with you. I prefer drinking wine with my girlfriends at the end of a hard day, and talking about a book that we're reading, than going to Whole Foods. So if I can, use the technology for that, then I think, again, giving us more choices and thinking about it in positive, constructive ways is really the way forward. Because as I say in the book, and The Quality Machine is all about, like, the train has left the station. We're on the train of technology and automation. So let
Yeah.
let's really find these opportunities and think rigorously about all the good that we can do.
Yeah, I like that. I think, like you're saying, ultimately it's a personal choice, and so maybe you're asking us to consider with each choice that we make around technology, is this going to be better for me or not? And is it going to cause me loneliness or not? Those kinds of things. Is this better for my kids and I or not? And make your decisions accordingly. But someone folding the laundry would be fantastic. And then every father on Father's Day would be getting the diaper changing machine. I'm sure. Well, thank you so much. This was really great, and I feel like you and I and my other friend Steve Van Cohen is his name. We're going to get on another call and talk more about this. I think it would be a good conversation. So thanks for joining me. If you have questions for Orly, by all means, please reach out to her on LinkedIn. She's off exploring St. Louis today, but she'll respond to you in short order. Thank you again. I really appreciated this conversation. You've given me a lot to think about.
Thank you, Catherine. It's been a pleasure.